Hi friends, sorry for the unannounced and indeed unintended day off. Got my family back, got my baby back. Aria was here at like 1:30 yesterday and immediately took over my life. And those of you who were parents will understand when I say I have been doing these at like 10:30 or 11 at night and don't know what I thought was going to happen. Didn't have a plan for, not being able to be awake at 11:30 anymore, but shockingly, when you have an infant, not the best time to be making noise 11:30 at night. Just not favorable. Bad, one might say. Might get yelled at, for example. Even now, at 9:07, low voice, calm voice, sending sleepy vibes in that general direction. But it's great. It's been really, really nice. As I mentioned, all of those performative aspects of my personality, things I quite like about myself, my willingness to do the dishes and take out the trash, completely dependent on being observed, apparently. Completely dependent on being graded for my performance. As like today, all over the place, doing chores, doing dishes, emptying the dishwasher, whatever, no problem, not wasting a bunch of time watching trashy things on YouTube. 3 days ago, that was my entire day. That's not true. I was doing a lot of patient care, but all of my unscheduled time was just wasted on garbage, which was very relaxing. And I'm not trying to write off garbage completely. Garbage is certainly a big part of American culture, and I'm no exception, but I like me better when I'm busy. And I'm busier when Reese is around. And Aria too. Medicine-wise, slow weekend. Mostly signed my notes from last weekend. Fortunately, my colleagues were really, really sweet and decided to cover me with my family back in town, so I didn't have to take calls for the most part. 3 or 4 snuck their way through, but overall, a very relaxing weekend. Got to be there with my baby, reestablish some routines. Portia hates it, obviously. Anyone want a cat? Seriously, just if anyone wants a cat, just let me know. Just very cute. You saw her. It's like episode 4, something like that. She's very cute. Very sweet, very loving. Hates the baby. She ignores her, but it's coming. But medicine-wise, the thing that's been talked about a lot recently is antibody testing, as antibody testing becomes more available. She has come to advertise herself, by the way. Come on, say hi. As antibody testing becomes more available and we realize that more people have had exposure to COVID-19 and therefore to coronavirus, SARS-CoV-2, and therefore SARS-CoV-2 is the virus that causes COVID-19, because the D in COVID stands for disease. That's the distinction that no one is going to care about, and I'm okay with that. More people have antibodies against this virus than we anticipated, possibly given the up to 80%, the 80% sensitivity that was quoted to me at my antibody visit. If we imagine the caseload may be higher by about a quarter than that's detected, almost 1 in 4 people in a random sample in New York were exposed to the virus in some meaningful way. And I don't know the proportion of these folks that were symptomatic, but it was a low proportion. So the vast majority of cases are asymptomatic, which of course means that the death rate, the mortality rate, is lower than anticipated. But now that people are finding out they are antibody positive, there's a lot of discussion about, well, we don't know what that means. And I think that's confusing to people, because intuitively, if you have antibodies, you should be immune. After all, that's how we think of things like measles, mumps, and rubella. Oh, we can't get those because we have antibodies. But the answer is that antibodies have never been perfect. Take flu vaccination. We get the flu shot every year because it's a different strain, and it has the potential to be a different strain every year, A. But also B, because antibody titers matter. And titers wane after immunization. So you get the shot, and then your level stays high for a little while and then gradually drops back down. And when you see the virus, your body will make antibodies again, but it takes time. When your levels are higher before seeing the virus, you are better protected. There's a variety of pretty good studies that demonstrate that. And so the flu vaccine, even with giving it every year, is only about 40 to 60% effective in preventing flu, preventing influenza. It reduces your risk by about that amount. And that's when they get it right. There's different antigen recombinations, and sometimes if the surveillance is wrong, they have the wrong strains in the vaccine, and then it is less effective. So none of those numbers is 100%. So then why do we bother? Well, number one, 50% risk reduction is pretty good. Number two, herd immunity, which is a term that gets tossed out a lot. But the bottom line is, if 90% of a population is immune to a disease, that doesn't mean that 10% of the population is going to get it. Because it's all about who you bump into, right? One case of COVID-19 doesn't expose all of New Yorkers. It bumps into 20, 30 people, and a certain number of them, the R naught, as it sometimes is referred to, contract the disease as a result of that. If you have antibody titers that are higher in the general population, the disease is less able to infect the entire population. So antibodies matter, but on a population basis, but on an individual basis, they certainly don't mean that you are immune to COVID-19. They are very likely to be protective to some degree, but the amount of antibody and the recency of exposure may matter. And it's possible that people who have titers may still at any point be at risk for recontracting COVID-19. There are already some case reports of this. Now, there's some argument as to whether those were recontractions or persistent disease, or some other person misunderstood what exactly had happened. But the point is that no one should be using proof of having antibodies as proof of immunity per se until we have a lot more data about how this tends to work. Science is slow. Peer review is slow. Data gathering is slow. All of these things are slow, and they're not really built to cope with pandemics. But they are the best tools that we have. The things that are going to be important are, yes, vaccination and herd immunity, but also contact tracing, finding the bubbles as they're small before they really grow and get big, and having good testing capacity will be important for that. Remember, testing doesn't really help the person you test. You probably knew they had COVID already. It helps all of the other people that they're now not going to be exposed to because you quarantined them. That's what the test is for. In a situation, sometimes you could help the person you test as well. Anyway, very long rant tonight. I feel like I'm way over that 6-minute mark, but I mostly wanted to say, hey, I thought about you guys a lot this weekend. That's not true. I haven't at all. But I do appreciate you sticking in and listening. I hope you guys are getting something out of it. I hope it's enjoyable. I hope it's educational. If there's specific questions you have that you want answered, leave them in the comments. I'm happy to do it. Otherwise, I'm just happy to continue talking about my life as a primary care doctor in the age of COVID, and to talk about some of the interesting stuff that's going on, because it's a very interesting time to be a doctor. All those old fogies in the age of the AIDS epidemic, they're not that old, by the way, they're like mid-50s, who love to talk about how horrible it was. Now I have my own thing to torture medical students with. Like, let me tell you, back in the days of COVID-19, we were giving people hydroxychloroquine. We didn't even know why. It didn't even work. No one thought it worked, really. I mean, the president thought it worked, but everyone else. I take cheap shots at Trump. I don't know. If that's my greatest advice, I feel like I'm okay. Have a good night, folks.